So I'm waxing up these spacer lines that I'm going to include in the bundle of lines I'm going to inlay. And then after the glue dries and the lines are inlaid into the rosette channel, I'm going to take these waxed lines and I'm going to tease them out with a pair of tweezers. And that's going to leave two channels in the rosette into which I can lay some more lines or some tiles. I have all the lines organized in the braid with these little wedges that I can release and move the braid around. The braid organizes this package of lines. And then I have everything kind of combed and straightened out and with these clothespins holding them in the right place. So here goes. I'm gonna put glue in here. And I'm not going to put glue on the sides of the channel because I don't want the lines sticking to the sides. I only want them sticking to the bottom of the channel. Let's see how out of control this gets. Come on, I know you want to go. There we go. If you get the inside messed up, if the inside doesn't track in right, it's difficult. It's harder, it's easier to get the outside pressed in if it doesn't track in correctly. And this looks like I'm doing this pretty easy, but no, we're not done yet, but I was just gonna say it's not as easy as it looks. Let's see, it got out of control at the top. It's okay though. The lines are wet, so they didn't cut the way I wanted them to cut, but they're all in. This is going to go under the fingerboard, so even though it looks, it's not my most perfect inlay, but since it's going to go under the fingerboard, we're going to fill that in later on with a little chunk of wood with this piece right here. But what I learned now is if you wet the lines, they go in easier, but they're harder to cut at the end. So This is what's left over. And I'm just making sure with my thumb everything is where I want it to be. So this is acceptable. This is going to work. Everything that's not good is going to go under the fingerboard right here. I've done these where they're totally perfect, but that wasn't today. But, you know, on lots of old work, both old and new work, you see work where they didn't quite hit the mark under the fingerboard, and that's perfectly fine. One line got trapped under. I'm going to have to do a little surgery here. Oh! It. That line broke, but I was able to just fit it right back in really fast. And when I put the hide glue over the whole thing, it'll just, that thing will fit. That thing will fit right back into the whole thing. So there it is. A little neater than yesterday. See, I was able to cut it. I was able to push it up here neater and cut it a little better there. Pretty excited to see how these lines are going to look. All right, let's put the tiles in the other one. So these are the lines that have wax on them. And theoretically, they should just pop right out because the glue shouldn't be sticking to these, but sometimes they don't exactly pop out. So what I do is I kind of grab them with the tweezers. Okay. So let's go for the next one. It's going to come out in pieces. Maybe it'll be more cooperative if we start at the other end. Yeah. Once you get it going, it seems to go. You got to be careful with the one on the very outside so that it doesn't tear any of the top wood as it comes out. Here we go. So if you get down on this, what we have now, if I turn this way, there's a trench here, or a channel here, and a channel here. And now we're going to drop we're going to cut the tiles and drop them into these channels. So now that we've cleared these two channels, I've taken these tile logs that we prepared earlier, and I've cut little pieces off the ends. And now I'm going to dip the little pieces in glue and start putting them in. So they've got to be quite thin. And I just keep a little bit of glue here. And all I really need to do is just touch a little bit of glue to the bottom. And I have a particular place I start the first one on this design, and then it alternates to the green and yellow. And the interesting thing about all this is that it doesn't have to be super tight, because the glue will swell this whole thing shut, but then I am a little picky about which ones go in which spot. So if one of them isn't quite tight enough, I'll grab another one. And I just cut these by eye as I go along. So I'll make, there, see, that's a tighter fit. So I'll make a few, put a few in, and then I'll cut a few more. Or like I'll make it like 10 or 12 of them. And then I use different tools for backing them up into each other, just whatever happens to fit. This thing actually might work better. So there's 3 of them. And in this way, you just work your way in both directions. And this is not an exact, super precise thing, even though in the end everything swells shut because you put, this is wood with its end grain, or it's not its end grain, but its side grain showing here, and it absorbs a lot of glue and it swells the wood up. So everything gets tight once it has glue on it. We're gonna bathe it in hot hide glue later on. This thing's basically just gonna it's gonna swell to its edges and tighten up. But the channel itself is not, precise in terms of this is not like grinding the valves on a vintage Jaguar where everything has to be perfect. It's like it's guitar making. So there's a little bit of romantic leeway. But at the same time, things should just fit. They should fit together nicely to make a good looking rosette in the end. The interesting thing about this is, as I was saying, that these tiles are not all precise, to the thousandths of an inch thickness, or to a super strict tolerance. But when the whole thing tightens up, it's sort of like, because they're not perfect, it's really interesting looking. Sometimes you look at rosettes and you see that they're absolutely pristinely perfect. Sometimes to me they don't look so interesting because they're not as, I don't know, for lack of a better word, they're not as organic. And I've always aimed to make something that's interesting to look at, that moves your eye around. You want to continue looking at it rather than something that's super highly detailed, like a postage stamp, but relatively static. And I don't know if this rosette's going to do that. Like I said, the other thing is that I kind of enjoy the risk of doing it and having it be improvised, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. But I like to be surprised at the end. I wouldn't make guitars unless I was surprised or intrigued with the way they looked or sounded. I'm just painting it with hot water, boiling water, which is just wetting it so that the hide glue can get down in there. And this is a coat, a coat of hide glue that's pretty thin, so that it gets down into the crevices between, the tiles and the lines, and it glues all those things together and expands the lines because we're putting a lot of water onto some little pieces of wood. So I'll do this glue application twice. This is going to dry overnight, and then tomorrow I will sand the top to its working thickness before its brace thickness. And then I'll put another coat of this glue over the rosette. It looks all kind of raggedy right now, but tomorrow when it's all cut down, it's going to be like, it's going to swell shut. All the cracks are going to, all the little fissures and cracks between the tiles and the lines are going to swell shut, and then it's going to get mowed down through thicknessing, and then another layer of glue, which it will open up fresh wood when I sand it, and then the glue will penetrate even deeper. And all these lines are glued in on the bottom, so the glue that penetrates, the high glue penetrating between them, is cementing them together, cementing the walls of the lines together. And I'm going to remove the spacer lines from rosette number 2. In this one, I'm just going to put a very fine black, white, black motif with black spacers in between it. It's going to be very simple. But I think these this black, white, black tile is maple, ebony maple, and I'm going to use it on the flat grain with the flat grain on top, and the maple is quite luminous. So I don't know if you can pick this up, but that's the end grain of the maple, and if I wet it, the end grain of the maple turns quite brown, whereas that top grain, that's flat grain, it's got a lot of refraction in it. It stays very luminous, and that's what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to go ahead and, even though that one's soaking wet, I'm just going to put extra glue on it and get it in there. And I'm starting right on the center joint of the guitar. Now I'm going to do something. I want the black, white, black. It's white, black, white, black, white. And then it's going to have a black spacer between them. But I want the black spacer to be a very specific length. And that length is 3 of these pieces, not the whole length, because I don't want this same proportion to be repeated as I put these pieces in. I want it to be slightly different. I'm going to measure that out. By putting this here. This is a very highly accurate finger method. Is that what I want? Yep. Okay, so that's going to be the width of all of them. And this piece is so small I don't need a stop for it. I can just hold it with my finger. So I'm just going to cut about 20 of these. Here we go. Let's see what happens with this one. These black tiles in between are going to disappear because it's black, white, it's white, black, white, and then black in between, and it's being set in a black field. So these little guys are these little ebony bricks are gonna just serve as spacers, which are going to just make these tiles look as if they're floating in this black field, something like that. Let's see. It just looks like a big gluey mess right now. When all this gets cut back, it's going to look really good. So the white glue is turned kind of milky, and it's kind of blocking the penetration of the other glue. But when we thickness this tomorrow after this dries off, all that situation is going to be changed, and everything's going to be cut down to one level. The top's going to be ready to brace. We'll put another layer of glue on the top of the rosette with hot water, and that'll further swell the lines into the channel. This is the top for an oud that I'm making a new top for it. It's a bigger sound hole, but it's got the same motif as this. Well, as both of them. This is what I kept talking about, this motif that I found in a 19th century oud that I've been using in my guitars. And so now I have an opportunity to make an oud top and reintroduce this motif that came from an oud into an oud top, so I'm actually kind of tickled about that. So these just need some cleanup, but basically there's 3 tops that are ready to brace.